Welcome to our next session, Empowering Latinas in STEM. I am Vanessa Boley-Nachavon, HACER's Director of Administration and Human Resources. I hope you had a great networking break and got a chance to not only meet new people, but also to reconnect with old friends. In this session, you will learn firsthand how to support Latina success in the ever-growing STEM field from current Latina STEM professionals. Before we get started, I would like to introduce Michelle Boston, Audit and Legal CIO and Data Management Technology Executive at Bank of America. Welcome, Michelle.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here today. We're deeply honored to be part of this symposium and panel and to be recognized by HACER as the Latinas Champion sponsor. Like you, we at Bank of America believe diversity and inclusion are critical for our clients, for our teammates, and for the communities we serve. We work to ensure diverse representation at all levels, from our board of directors, which is 47% diverse, to our managers, which are 44% diverse. And as all of you at HACER continue to do so much to shine a light forward for all Latinas, I'm proud to share that we are among overall management population of 40% women and 15% Hispanic Latino. We are proud to have a Hispanic and Latino Executive Council comprised of more than 230 US-based Hispanic and Latino leaders who help influence strategies and deepen representation and relationships with our Hispanic and Latino clients. In addition, we have a group, Hispanic and Latino Organization for the Advancement. It includes 17,000 Hispanic and Latino teammates to promote inclusion, mentoring, and professional development. At Bank of America, we understand the importance of diversity in STEM and how it will drive the future of our company, our industry, and the economy. And to that end, we have done the following in terms of our careers and commitment to STEM. We're a founding member of Rewriting the Code's Latina STEM program for Latino women in engineering and computer science majors to develop a community of support for them as they enter the technology industry. We have strong relationships with the High-Tech Hispanic IT Executive Council, which is an organization of senior technology executives developing the next generation of Hispanic and Latino IT leaders through professional development, mentoring, and recognition of achievements. And through programs like Girls Who Code in Europe, we're supporting the younger members of our Hispanic and Latino community, opening doors for them into careers in technology and finance. We're excited about today's conversations and a commitment to making STEM careers more attractive for Latinas. Before we continue with our panel, I would love the opportunity to share a brief video with you.
Thank you, Bank of America, for your continued support and for being our Latina Champion sponsor. I would now like to introduce Claudia Arana Sanchez, Global Sustainability Reporting and Integration Manager at Ford Motor Company. Welcome, Claudia.
Thank you. I am delighted to be here today representing Ford. Ford has been supporting HACER for many years, helping opening doors for Hispanic corporate professionals. And I am a testament to that. I had been able, through my career at Ford, I had the opportunity to participate in many of the different leadership programs that HACER put together every year. And I will tell you, since my participation on the Young Hispanic Achiever in 2013, and with the guidance and with leaders such as Juana and Sid, I had been able to build a network of people who now I call my friends, who have helped me throughout my development and my career. So thank you to Ford and Hacer for all you do. Ford understands the critical role that diversity, equity, and inclusion plays, and we understand the need to build the pipeline for STEAM, specifically for Latinas in all the different minority representative groups. Um, and we know that diversity, equity, and inclusion leads to a greater innovation in business outcomes. We also understand the need to support organizations and initiatives that promote understanding and a culture of belonging. Our company purpose is to build a better world where every person is free to move and pursue their dreams. And this is really our commitment. It's our commitment to create a world with fewer obstacles and limits. It's our commitment to support our communities and provide tools to those underrepresented so that they can move forward and upward. We know that when everyone belongs, when we all work together, we do as humanity what we know how to do best. We change the world. And so we like to thank Acer for putting this type of events together, and specifically the panel that we're participating today. Like to thank Sid and the overall team. And without further ado, enjoy the panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claudia, and thank you, Michelle. I would also like to thank Bank of America and Ford Motor Company for your continued support and dedication to Hispanic inclusion. I'd now like to welcome today's moderator, Dr. Lisette Garcia. Dr. Garcia is the Assistant Vice President for Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging at Penn State University, and I'm so happy to welcome her back for this year's symposium. Welcome, Lisette.
Thanks, Vanessa. It's wonderful to be here with you and the Hacer team and our distinguished panelists having this conversation about empowering Latinas in STEM. It's such a topic that's near and dear to my heart, even though I'm not necessarily a STEM professional, but I am a researcher and have sort of followed what has been happening in STEM as industries that traditionally weren't seen as being STEM are now exploding with STEM employees and STEM work. And it's just amazing to see it. And it's amazing to know that as Latinas in STEM, we really are the future of this work. So excited to have this conversation with you all today. And I am going to kick us off by introducing our panelists, welcoming them to the stage, and then asking them to give us the quick sort of 30-second highlight of what they do. I know they all do wonderful things that probably would take longer than 30 seconds, but in 30 seconds or less, ladies, let's tell us who you are and what you do. So we're going to start with Claudia Arana Sanchez, the Global Sustainability Reporting and Integration Manager at Ford. Please welcome Claudia.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. 30 seconds. I am responsible for the integrated sustainability and financial report for Ford, as well as for environmental, social, and governance disclosures. So we work very closely with our stakeholders, understanding what our opportunities are in moving the company forward in a sustainable way.
Great. Wonderful. Welcome, Claudia. Next, joining us today is Michelle Boston, the Legal and Audit Technology CIO and Data Management Executive at Bank of America. Michelle, welcome to the stage.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. I manage a team of about 800 employees and $125 million in technology investment annually to deliver new systems and capabilities to our legal teams, our corporate audit function, and most importantly, capabilities to manage data and protect data, which is one of the most important assets we have of our customers and clients, safeguarding that data and assuring it's available for use, but protected.
Wow. Well, welcome to the stage, Michelle. And joining us today, rounding out our panel, is Monica Tijerina, the Executive Director in Pharmaceutical Development and Manufacturing at Gilead Sciences. Monica, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So in my current role, I manage global supply chain. So what that means is I have a team that manages getting investigational medicines to global clinical trials. And we also support commercial products. So all our commercial products I also help to manage.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, welcome, ladies. So let's kick off our panel and talk a little bit about STEM. And maybe, Claudia, you could start us off by sharing, how did you get into STEM?
Sure. I was born and raised in Guatemala, and I had the fortune to have a dad who loves fixing things. And so since I was little, I was always helping him, giving him tools and understanding how things worked. And then when I was 13, my mom and dad brought in someone, a friend of, of a family that came to live with us. He was going to go to university in the city. And so he lived with us for 4 years. And he was basically my mentor throughout those 4 years. And he was a civil engineering. And he taught me, things that I never even imagined of designing buildings and, structures and so on. So I was very fortunate to actually have mentors in my life that encouraged me and let me know that I was able to do anything I wanted to.
Mentorship is so important, and we're not going to get there yet in the conversation, but just to let everyone know, we are going to get to that part of the conversation in a little bit. So thank you for sharing that, Claudia. And I do also want to encourage the audience that if you have questions for our esteemed panelists, please don't be shy, share those in the chat box, and we'll get to those as we're going through our conversation today. So one of the things that we hear about and that we know is well documented by research are some of the challenges that people of color, women, Latinas in particular, face when they enter STEM fields. So, Monica, do you want to tell us a little bit perhaps about some of the challenges that you experienced throughout your career and some tactics that you had to successfully navigate those?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me, the way I navigated or have a career in STEM, I had to educate myself about what opportunities were available. So I really enjoyed science. I found that as an undergrad. And just through, conversations, I was able to, establish a career in which I worked in pharmaceutical industry. Upon joining pharmaceutical industry, you come to learn there's not a lot of individuals that look like you in the room. And so you have to just really navigate that to build your own path. And so for me, it's a journey. It continues to be a journey. And so it was really around understanding how I was perceived. And so I think feedback was really important to understand how I was perceived by my colleagues, making adjustments where I could. I reached out to find mentors to help me navigate and grow as an individual. And so I do think probably the biggest challenge is there's not a lot of people that look like me or that I know that look like me, especially in a STEM career. And it's around speaking up, owning your own path, and finding ways to enable you to build that path. And it's a journey, right? We all continue to learn and grow. And for me, 20 years in, I'm still learning and I still grow.
Yeah, there's something about this idea of it being a journey as opposed to a destination that I think really resonates with folks, right? Like if we're thinking about this from the long haul, your perspective and your approach and how you navigate it is different than if you're just thinking about in that particular moment, right? Michelle, I see you nodding your head. Anything you want to add there?
No, I mean, absolutely. I love the comments that were already made. I had a dad who was a double E math major, so he was a huge influence on me as well. But that journey is all about, one, staying authentic to yourself. I think the challenge being in a largely male-dominated profession is how do we create our unique room for our voices and perspectives, and staying strong and staying transparent and honest, but also being ourselves, because that technology bent needs to serve all customers and all clients. And those clients include women, and they include Hispanic and Latino, customers, right? So finding that balance along the way of mentors who help you and guide you and polish those skills you have, but also bringing those skills to the table to influence and drive the work is a big part of the balance we all have to achieve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Lisette,
sorry.
I was just gonna, if you don't mind, I was gonna add.
No,
to the
I was going to ask you
conversation.
if you wanted to add something.
I was, because I also think we need to consider the roles of society, right? And I will tell you, when my dad always encouraged me to do what I wanted, but when I told him that I wanted to go for engineering, and specifically civil engineering, he said, "No way. You're going to be with all those men on, the highways. That's not where I see you. Like, you need to consider other options." And I think, the fact that you need to stay true to yourself and then pursue your dreams regardless of, what society tells you sometimes, I think it's very important. So the other part of the story is that I left Guatemala, a very comfortable place for me, and decided to embark in an adventure that, it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. But I graduated with, a bachelor's and a master's degree in manufacturing engineering and mechanical engineering. And I will tell you, my dad's really proud now. But, you have to overcome those, I guess, that mentality that some may have, that you do not belong.
I think too, sort of, Claudia, picking up on what you're saying, sometimes it's not just societal, right? And I think you were sort of touching upon this, right? It's our own families sometimes, right? I have my PhD, and I remember when I was working on my PhD, my dad was constantly saying, like, "You're still in school? Mija, ¿y cuándo te vas a casar?" Right? Like, when are you going to get married, right? And I was like, okay, Dad, in time, everything will happen all in due time. But right now, I want to focus on my education. I want to focus on doing this, that, and the other, so that when I do get married, there'll be less I'll have to worry about, right? And sometimes we have to think about those things and figure out strategies for how we help our families understand. Anyone want to share strategies, tips, ways they approached it with their own families? I know, Claudia, you started to touch on it a little.
Yeah, so one is, don't be afraid of tell them how you feel. I think the bond that you have with family is a lot stronger than what you think it is. So specifically for us Hispanics, right? And there is a difference between respecting your parents and not communicating how you feel in a respectful way. And so I think that's probably one of my biggest advices, is that don't settle. If your dad, it's coming and approaching you with something you should do, and based on his authority, don't settle. Go for what you want, because I will tell you, he is so proud of it now, and we had so many different conversations, and how happy he is that I didn't.
Wonderful. Anyone else like to add? Maybe, we've talked a little bit about families, we've talked a little bit about societies, we've talked about, in sort of a roundabout way, some of the challenges that Latinas have to face. And any other thoughts?
I do have a different story to share, in that my father was an engineer, but I lost my father at 15 years of age. And so as an undergrad, I was the youngest of three, and my sister was getting her graduate degree in science. And so I was finishing up my undergrad in chemistry, and I remember reaching out to my sister to ask her, like, should I go to graduate school? I really enjoy working in a lab. And I think for her, she had given me advice around, really knowing what I wanted and being very clear. And so it was kind of that voice of, maybe this isn't something you should pursue. In the end, it's your own life, right? You have to live the life that you're meant to live, and you're meant to do things that you have passion to do. And so for me, I didn't heed that advice. And I said, I'm going to go to graduate school and figure out what I can do. I really enjoy working in the lab. And I will say that is the career defining moment in my life, in that once I went to graduate school and I was able to surround myself with other individuals that were doing different science backgrounds, I could really map out how I could progress into development, into research and development. So for me, I think what I learned is, it's your life. You got to live your authentic life. and you should always do something that you have passion to do.
We all have responsibility to be the role models for the next generation, to make that conversation less of a challenge for the women who are growing up and the young girls. So whether it's, a Girls Who Code program or RTC de Latinas, or community involvement where we volunteer or participate in nonprofits and we provide exposure and awareness of the opportunity. I'm so proud of the heritage that we have, very, very hardworking and proud, as a community and as a culture. And when we expose those opportunities for mobility and progress for our own people, I find it really resonates with the parents. But those are pathways that may not have been so obvious to parents in the past. So how do we create that conversation at the grade school level, at the middle school level, at the high school level, and inspire that next generation of technologists?
Yeah, that's a great point, Michelle. One of the things that that I've learned over the years in my different roles and the experience that I've had is that sometimes we, culturally, we are often very traditional, right? And so there's a certain path to success that perhaps our parents and their parents expected us to follow, right? And now the world is changing and industry looks different, and the sectors where there's opportunity are not the same sectors that traditionally they thought there were. And so a lot of the work that I think we need to do as folks that have been successful is to reach back into those communities and have those conversations and say, oh, you like science, you like chemistry, you could do this, or you like math, you like numbers, you could do this, right? And getting people to see that there are so many different avenues and opportunities for success that aren't necessarily the traditional ones that we think, right? A big part of that is mentorship and, getting involved in the communities and giving back in that way. The other half of that mentorship coin, though, is how we leverage those opportunities to be successful and to advance our own careers. So can we talk a little bit about that process, perhaps how you've sought out mentors throughout your career, maybe the best or most critical piece of advice that someone has shared with you? So, Monica, let's start with you on the mentorship one. And I know this is a question that you all had identified wanting to talk about. So we'll go Monica, Claudia, and then Michelle.
So I'm going to hit a question that's already in the chat around, the question is, I sometimes feel no matter how hard I work, I will never reach my career goal. How do I change my mindset? So for me, I think it does hit the mentor piece in that when I first joined my second company, there are things that I wanted, and I felt like if I worked hard, I was just going to be recognized and that opportunities would open up. I reached out and established a relationship with a senior leader there. And the best advice he gave me was, like, what do you want, Monica? Like, you have to say what you want, and be very clear and firm in what you want. And when you say what you want, have those conversations and have right, it's a journey. Like, how are you going to get there? And you should always be thinking, 3 to 5 years ahead of how you want to grow and how you want to develop. And so for me, I think the biggest thing that I learned that changed my career trajectory is really knowing what I wanted and being able to articulate that and having that conversation, not just with my manager, but with other leaders. So I think, if you feel like you're not going to get to your career goal, the conversations I have with people on my team, and I lead a team of around 90 individuals, is what do you want to do? And then have that conversation with myself, have that conversation with your manager, and let's find a way for you to get there. And likely there'll be gaps for you to get there, and that's fine, right? And how do you adjust those gaps to kind of take on that next assignment?
Claudia, any thoughts?
Yeah, I wanted to first go back to the mentoring ship. And I think, Lisette, just to finish the family conversation, I think that when we think about mentors, we should include the families within. And I can't tell you how many times I had mentor young girls for which their parents, are like, no, she's too busy to participate in this program, or no, what does she need to go there for? And so we need to also educate the parents many times, on the opportunities I have had. There are immigrant parents that may not know, right, if they're thinking they may be putting their daughter at risk, and so we need to educate them and bring them along in the journey of getting the best opportunity for their kids. But when it comes to mentoring, I think, I have had many different mentors in my career, and I have different mentors for different things. And that has helped me greatly. If I, looking into applying for another job and I want to, know what everybody else will think, I go to someone who's been involved in my career, since day one. And I am so blessed to actually have this person, in my life, in my career, that tells me bluntly what he will think, about this next step. But that it has also encouraged me to say, if you want to take that risk, go ahead, right? Like, what's the worst that could happen? And so we go through all the different, scenarios, and it makes me go and analyze, what my next steps should be. And if I have a difficult conversation that I need to have with someone, I go to another mentor, and then talk to this mentor really openly about how I'm feeling, and my soft skills, and how I can do this the best that I can. So I think my advice is to don't rely just on one person. You'll come along different people that you admire throughout your career. And usually what I do is when I see someone's leadership style that I feel close to, I reach out to that person. I identified, and I just let them know. I identified with, how you handle this conversation, or, how you are leading. And I just want to know if you'll take some time, to mentor me. And then on the other side, there's sponsors, right? And quite honestly, you never know who's watching. And I do have a story of, I participated in the speed mentoring, which it was, you take 15 minutes, you have different leaders, and you go around the room and you talk to each one of them. And I remember one of my vice presidents was actually in one of the tables, and as I looked at the rotation, I knew that I was going to end up in that table. And so here I am thinking and stressing out, okay, I need to sound intelligent. What should I ask? Or, so making in my head that type of conversation that I thought it was going to happen. And when I got there, she took a piece of paper out, and she started drawing where she thought I should go next. And she said, we're going to make this happen. And I didn't say a word really, like throughout the conversation. Like, she was telling me how or what she thought about me, and when she saw where she saw that I could be successful. And quite honestly, I didn't expect that. So you never know who's watching. So every time you have even a one-on-one, or you're meeting with a mentor, make sure that you're prepared, right? That you don't just go in and cry your problems out, but that you talked about it intelligently, and that you have already made a plan as to how to do it, and then just communicate that plan and let them tell you, did you consider this, or have you thought about this, as opposed to just going in and tell me what to do.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I do want to come back to something you said in a minute, but before we do that, Michelle, any thoughts on mentorship? Are you currently mentoring anyone, or how did you find your first mentor?
I am. Yes. I mean, I mentor probably in different ways. One-on-one, I mentor about 25, mostly women, and 10 of those are Hispanic and Latino talent that I'm specifically mentoring. And that mentoring, when we talk about that one-on-one mentoring, as was mentioned earlier, that's really to specifically help them with different aspects of either getting increased opportunities in role, or promotion in role, or moving laterally based on their career development plans, understanding those plans and helping them achieve their targets and understand the areas they need to grow and develop for that next level. I'm also very proud of, we're offering a mentoring program for over 900 Hispanic and Latino associates in the DFW area, not only in technology, but across technology and operations. And those are more incoming associates to really create that strong pipeline of representation that starts there, and then emerges throughout the company. But I do want to touch on one point, which is mentorship versus sponsorship that was mentioned earlier. You know, mentors can be anywhere. And I usually look for those people who have a skill or a talent or a capability, whether it's business acumen, technical acumen, maybe they've achieved a level in their career that I'm looking to achieve. And for a period of time, I look to learn specifically from those people. I think sponsorship is more directly in your organization, because with sponsors, you want those people advocating for your next move. Whether your next move is an opportunity to move into another job or role. We always talk about career development as a jungle gym. It's not a ladder. So sometimes you're moving over or laterally to build new skill sets. Sometimes you're moving up. So sponsors who are within your organization can directly advocate for you, put you in touch with people who have roles, put you in line for promotion, and you need to foster both. So that's my recommendation to the group.
So I love that visualization of your career trajectory as a jungle gym versus a ladder, right? Like, I think traditionally we've always looked at it as a ladder. And so sometimes folks weren't willing to make moves or didn't really realize that a lateral move might actually have an uber positive effect on their career ultimately, right? Because we think about it this way, right? And not that it could be here or there, right? And I guess going back to how we started our conversation about a journey, not a destination, if you really are thinking about it as a journey, that journey might take you in a lateral direction and not necessarily in a vertical one. And that's absolutely okay, right? Because it's allowing you to perhaps develop or build a skill set that you haven't really utilized as much, or that you hasn't really been a strength, which might then sort of support a vertical move at some point, right, in your career. So thank you for sort of acknowledging that, all of you, so that, you know, that we recognize that career moves, right, to the question that was in the chat earlier about changing their mindset. Well, maybe that's the part of the mindset that needs to get changed, right? That you see this career goal as only being attainable through a vertical path. So just to kind of highlight a couple of things that I think I've heard you say, and you all say, and I think just to make sure we have clarification for our audience, there is a difference between a sponsor and a mentor, right? A sponsor might be that person that you can go and you can confide in and share, you know, what perhaps your goals are and maybe some obstacles that are in your way, and kind of figure out how you can get past those, right? And then the sponsor is really that person that's advocating for you behind the scenes, right? So really wanting to make sure our audience understands the difference between those things. And as Claudia, I think it was, said, you sometimes don't know who that person is, right? Like, you don't know who's paying attention to your work, and you don't know, you know, who's back there advocating for you, right? So it's really important that you're always trying to sort of present, you know, sort of that best foot forward, right? So that folks that are in those positions can help you when that time comes. So Michelle, I think you were just talking about something about pipeline. And so I want to talk about two things as we give our audience members some time to put some questions in the chat. Like, don't be shy, folks. This is your time to ask your questions. But one is, I think, you know, thinking about pipelines and thinking about what companies can do, right? And Michelle, I know you sort of started to touch on this, but wondered if you could expand, you know, like, what is it that we want companies to understand that they should be doing to be supporting Latinas in STEM?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things, right? we have a responsibility not only to seek out and pull through talent that exists in our current organization in a very intentional way, right? And to bring our diversity into all ranks from the board of directors, management teams down. I think that's one aspect, right? And that means measuring and managing and intentionally driving conversations that bring our Hispanic and Latino and our Black associates, into pipeline, getting recognition and promotion. I think beyond that, though, we have a larger problem. We talked about some of the numbers of women in tech, and then Hispanic and Latino women in tech. We have a pipeline problem, and that pipeline really starts all the way back to grade school, all the way back to the parents, which we talked about, which is an incredibly, incredibly important influence in all of our children's lives. So being involved at the community level, I'm involved with Girls Who Code. We run summer immersion programs at Bank of America. Over 1,000 girls actually participated this year in our summer immersion program, exposing them to the creative and innovative careers and technology that are available to them. And we do Girls Who Code on a local level as well. So we volunteer at Bank of America in local chapters of Girls Who Code. I have girls as young as 4th grade, 5th grade, who are getting access to MIT software, to dream of systems, to build the systems, to have the support of many companies, including Bank of America, to listen to their ideas, to foster innovation. And I think, really, really being involved at the local level and having our communities see people like us in successful roles, and having within our companies more of us represented, and then spending the time to foster and spend time with those talented individuals, to raise them up and to create a pipeline for the future. I mean, it's a lot of work, but we're committed to that, as well as investments, significant investments in the community, like our $1.25 billion investment to racial equity, which includes many, many outreach and education programs for Hispanic and Latino communities.
Thank you for sharing that, Michelle. Monica, do you want to talk a little bit about perhaps maybe what Gilead is doing, maybe from the perspective of onboarding and or retention, once they've been able to find that Latina talent in STEM, to continue to support them throughout their careers?
That we've been doing. There's like 3 things that we've been doing. Inclusion and diversity has really been a focus. It's something that I just see exploding, not just within Gilead, but other companies as well. And so we do have an Inclusion and Diversity Council, and it's really around identifying talent and making sure that talent pool is diverse, right? So having that conversation of, where is our talent, and making sure we develop and are accountable for developing diverse talent. I actually co-lead a Latino employee resource group at Gilead as well. And there's a couple ways we help with that as well. One is we are collaborating with nonprofit organizations. I'm located in California in the Bay Area, and one nonprofit that we collaborate with is the Hispanic Foundation of Silicon Valley. And so that nonprofit has been very successful of taking students all the way from cradle to career. And it's really important, and I stand behind the comments that are made that you have to inform the family and bring the family along. And it's really about that pipeline, right? So tracking a student to make sure that you don't lose them, through middle school, high school, and college, and you keep mentoring them. And then within that Latino ERG, we also work to develop our members as well. They don't have to be Latino. We actually have a high percentage of Latino employees that join that ERG, and we put together a professional development series around leadership, and got feedback from the members to put that panel together. So for us, it's around, at the highest leadership level at a company, that they are accountable for identifying diverse talent and developing them. 2, it's through those employee resource groups, you can provide additional support to your Latino members to develop them as well.
Thank you. Claudia, we've heard about a couple of organizations that both Michelle's company and Monica's company are working with, right? Girls Who Code, the Hispanic Foundation of Silicon Valley. Any ones that stand out to you that Ford has created a partnership with? I know there'd be some interest on the part of our audience members in hearing what some of these organizations are that support Latinas in STEM.
Definitely, and I think women who code it. Girls who code. It's a big one for us as well. We've been supporting that organization for over a decade, and then we also have FIRST. It's a robotic community that prepares young people for the future. So Ford became a FIRST partner, a strategy partner in a while back now, and it's helping students of all ages, including young girls, to fall in love with that type of technology. But Ford has also created what we call Ford Driving Dreams, or FDD, and through the Ford Driving Dreams we provide scholarships, community grants, youth literacy resources, and student leadership training that inspired multicultural youth and celebrates the benefits of staying in school. The efforts that we're taking in Latin America are huge, right? We have donated more than 2 million in community grants and 100,000 new books, and so we're always working, to increase and spark that interest on STEAM careers. And we also work with our employee resources group. So the Ford Hispanic Network has been fundamental on all the different actions that we have taken specifically through Ford Driving Dreams. So I had the opportunity to travel across different areas in the United States, and then just have fun with children. They're like 10, 13 years old, or they're different ages, and we take the time to build that mentorship relationship where they know they can come back to us, and ask any questions that they may have, and we really take that very seriously. And one thing that we're doing now, it's actually bringing high school students to do internships at Ford. And so we have been engaging with different high schools in Detroit that had provided a couple of students that come in and spend the summer with us. I know there's some rules and regulations that go with it. Sometimes we do have 4 students that account for one head, but we do everything that we can to ensure that they have a good time, that they learn, and that they engage in all the different projects that we have in spark that interest again. So across the world, there's different actions that we're taking. In the UK, we have a primary engineer. It's a nonprofit that runs engineering-based courses for school children in the UK. And we also, from the sustainability perspective, we have the driving human progress through social enterprise. And the reason why this is important, it's because it really focuses on she. So it's called She Moves. And if we know that the mothers have what they need, it's a lot easier for the kids then to be focused on and help them pursue a career.
Thank you. So, we're coming close to the end of our time. We've got, a couple minutes left. I'd like to encourage the audience that's out there listening to our conversation today, if you have questions, to please put those in the chat so that we can make sure to address them before we end our conversation today. There is one out there that I want to get your opinions on. We've been talking a lot about the importance of reaching kids early and going out to schools and getting folks to understand that STEM is a viable path for career success, right? But for those of us who miss that opportunity at that age, right, and now have had careers, maybe successful careers, but want to sort of transition, explore the opportunity to now get into STEM, what career advice would you give women who are in that situation?
I can start. Look, it's never too late. Some of some of my peers started with degrees in psychology or non-technical degrees. And if you think about what we do when we build new technology, we start with understanding processes and understanding organizational needs and defining requirements that can then be enabled by technology solutions or automation or other capabilities. And so I think, the idea that technology is limited to pure computer science and engineering degrees is absolutely not true. Leverage your company's network. I know, for example, at Bank of America, we have something called GT&O University. We have thousands of courses and online training where you can get certifications in technology-related fields or programming languages or competencies that are paid for by the company. In addition, we pay for, college degrees. We pay for a lot of additional training for our associates who are interested in making those kinds of transitions. But I think, one of the key aspects of making that transition is talk to your managers, understand how you can get both on-the-job opportunities and formal training, and really, really assess and kind of find the intersection of what you're good at and what you love to do and what technology careers kind of fit that intersection. And have those career development conversations and those with your managers and help them enable you.
And Lisette, I was going to say, I have seen transitioning both ways. And I'm actually an example, right, where I had the opportunity to lead the diversity and inclusion, at Ford Motor Company. And in the same way, I think what we need is organizations to build an agile workforce. And what that means is we all work together, right? Because then that's when the best ideas come forward. When we have someone from marketing, when we have someone from engineering, development, branding, when we all work together as an agile organization, many, many things happen that may not if you're isolated in the lab. And so based on all of those different interactions that we have had, it has been easier for others to transition to either a technical career or to a more human rights career like I did. And so I encourage you to, there's like tons of different resources available. Companies usually provide them on either different certifications that you can take. Know when it's actually limiting you from maybe taking a Six Sigma certification and start getting yourself introduced to some of the technical terms. And then, that evolution of participating on different groups and raising your hand, I think will allow you to know better where would you like to land. And then provide more information to your management, as Monica mentioned.
So I want to pick up on this concept of agile workforce, right? And I really like that terminology. And there's a question that's coming in the chat that, the individual is looking for some suggestions on how they can talk to their manager about doing just that, Claudia, right? Like they don't necessarily want to follow that traditional vertical career path. They want to get some strategies for how to talk to their manager about maybe following that jungle gym path instead. So anyone have any thoughts on how you can have that conversation to let your manager know that you want to be more flexible, more agile, and follow a non-traditional path?
I'll say be curious, because before you even start having a conversation, you have to have an idea of what you want to do. Because if you sit in front of your management and you tell them, well, I don't really know, but this is not what I want, it just kind of creates the wrong impression, right? But if you do your research and you start participating in different groups, and at Ford, this happens a lot, where we have design thinking sessions where we invite different stakeholders from different organizations to think together. And so so that has helped in our case. But you have to be selective on which ones do you participate, because otherwise that's all you will do, right? And you have a full-time job that you have to perform on. So really be picky, but be curious. Know exactly what route you want to go, and then approach your manager. By any means, there's opportunities out there, and your manager should help you find some of them once you let them know exactly what you want to do.
I agree. I think you can be curious yet selective in that opportunity, right? So that they see that there is a reason why, right? You can't just all of a sudden want to start jumping here and there and everywhere, right? Like there has to be a rationale why. There's another question that's come into the chat about how men can be strong allies or better allies to support their Latina colleagues and Latina advancement in STEM. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I'll start by saying many men are already. They were instrumental in my career as mentors and leaders, giving me opportunities to grow. So I think that many already are, but I think the harder work to do, and we have D&I councils as well at all levels of the organization, is for them to recognize that because, if you think of the management team, if they're 40% diverse, that means they're 60% non-diverse, right? And what is the responsibility of the non-diverse population to intentionally identify and promote diverse talent? I think that's the work ahead of us. And sometimes that means it takes longer to fill a role because you're creating diverse slating. It takes time and intention to talk about development plans, to identify gaps and to fill those gaps with either opportunities to learn or academic instruction to build up that skill set. And then being willing to take a chance on somebody who maybe has 80% of the requirements for a job, but not the other 20, and to grow and develop those talented leaders that are diverse. And really just take a chance and support them as they grow into role. I think that's really what we're asking our men to step up to do. And I think they're doing a fantastic job rising to the occasion.
I agree. I will say get engaged, right? Don't wait for someone to knock your door. There's at Ford, we have what we call Men as Allies. And it's a group of, managers that started in manufacturing where we have, the least representation of women, and they're working together, doing the things that you mentioned, right? Who are we going to take a chance on? How can we develop this person? This job it's opening, can we prepare someone to take this position? And so it's really not waiting. The time to act is today, and get engaged and learn from other men. Research actually says that men listen to men better than what they will listen to women. And so when you hear those experiences that are, positive experiences and how you have helped reduce the gender gap, it's really powerful to the others.
I do agree. I mean, I do think it's really about awareness, right? Like as women, we can have a unique journey, and as Latina women, right, it becomes a more unique story. So for me, how men become strong allies is just awareness. There's listening on both sides, and definitely there's research where a woman can give an idea that's not heard within a meeting, and then a man will say the same idea, and then that is observed. And so for me, it's holding myself accountable to say, Claudia had that idea, and just making sure that those voices are heard. So I think the more that we do that and build that awareness of certain behaviors, I think we will get to a better outcome.
And I agree. I think, there's I was thinking about how do I wrap up everything that you all just said in that question? And, what struck me is the 80-20, right? When Michelle was talking about sometimes people apply for a position and they only have 80% of the qualifications. Research has shown us that that's typically men, right? Men will apply for a job if they have 3 of the things that it says that you need to have. But women historically will research has told us will only apply if they have every single thing that's on that list, right? So it's how can we encourage women to take those chances, right? To behave in that fashion so that they get that opportunity. And in part, it's from hearing from people who have done it and have been successful at it, right? And so it's having those conversations, it's being open to that. So we've got just a few minutes left, and we've been talking about a lot of different topics here today, and we've been talking about challenges, we've been talking about strategies and advice for navigating those challenges and being successful in our careers. And I want to ask you all in the last couple of minutes that we have, if you could, share some advice, your sort of last parting bit of advice with our audience about why Latinas should continue to persist and insist on advancement in STEM. Claudia, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. So one is for those of us who are already in, we have the responsibility to make it better for those who are behind us. So that to me is foremost important, because I want my daughter to be able to do what she wants, and I'm sure many of us think the same way. But two is exclusion. It's a competitive workforce issue, and in terms of what Latinas have to offer. And so if we want another approach for problem solving or adding creativity and innovation to a company, we need Latinas. And we need Latinas not just sitting on the chair, at the table, but they're actually voicing their opinions and letting everybody know how can a product be better. And so I think that we own it to everyone behind us, but also to society, to make things, right and create better things for everyone.
Yeah, I'll just add, look, it's never been a more important time to have diversity in our workforce. And for Latinas in particular, look, at the end of the day, we must represent the communities we serve. We cannot create the products and services that people want without having diversity of talent in technology. Because those innovations come from the voices of a diverse workforce. And so I think what we have to do to spur interest in technology is make sure that we are sharing the huge economic opportunity that Hispanic and Latino women and men have by pursuing careers in technology, and how through that they will not only have economic power, but buying power and influence in the policies and the processes that run this country. And I think, that is what gets me excited. And my advice to everyone is the advice Reshma Sujani, who heads Girls Who Codes, gives, which is be brave, not perfect. Take a risk, take a chance. There are so many exciting and innovative and creative careers in technology, and we are all here to support the Hispanic and Latino women and to make them successful.
That is hard to top off. I think I agree with everything that's been said. I will say, for me, I've been very thankful for the career that I've been given, and to have impact, to help bring, medicines, life-saving medicines to people. And having two, teenage kids myself, we always talk about, what career do you want to pursue? There is a lot of opportunity with STEM careers. And I know that there's a lot of discussion around, right, what do I do with my degree? There is so much you can do with STEM. I'm a firm believer that the U.S. does not produce enough scientists. We need to produce more scientists. And if they're Latinas, even better.
Well, thank you so much for those final thoughts, ladies, and thank you for joining us for this conversation. It's been a wonderful way to spend our afternoon. I'm going to turn it back over to Vanessa.
Thank you, Lisette, and thank you, Monica, Michelle, and Claudia. I appreciate your candid discussion about your experience and how to support those who come after you. Our next session, Developing the Leadership Pipeline, will be starting in just a few minutes in the auditorium. I look forward to seeing you all there.